4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, folks. Welcome aboard. As I mentioned to you, a great lineup this hour. Of course, the battle in Israel and the Gaza Strip continues. We have reports of explosions in Gaza City, but also CNN had reported earlier that 4 dead Israelis inside of Israel as the result of rockets fired by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. And I think something that needs to be reported on and will not be reported on by the mainstream media. You know, when Hamas and the Hamas lovers in the media come on and talk about Israeli occupation, Israel's not occupying the Gaza Strip. Israel gave the Gaza Strip back, gave it back. I shouldn't say gave it back, gave it to the Palestinians. Palestinians never had the Gaza Strip. Egypt had the Gaza Strip. They gave it to the Palestinians. And the Palestinians ransacked everything Israel had left for them to give them a heads up, to get greenhouses. Philanthropists, Jewish philanthropists donated millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they trashed everything. And they now have what they have. There's a blockade, but there's only a blockade in recent years since Hamas began firing rockets at Israel. That's why there's a blockade, so you don't get rockets and concrete in there to build tunnels and fire rockets. So Israel doesn't occupy Gaza. The Palestinians and Hamas occupy Gaza. But I bet you there's a lot of people in this world that don't know that. All right, I bet you Senator Jeff Sessions knows it. We'll come back with him. I want you to listen to some media lunacy. Watch.
As much as Americans rallied to the cause of the Children's Crusade, also agents of the American state that were willing to attack them with armed officers, fire hoses, and police dogs when they challenged a deeply entrenched way of life in the South. Rick Perry was preceded in his call to send armed troops to confront children by Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus, and he called the National Guard to stop the Little Rock Nine from their first day of school at Central High. The presence of children on buses integrating Boston schools in 1974 didn't stop white crowds from confronting them with slurs and threats of violence.
That's Melissa Harris Perry, folks, trying to compare the children coming across our border illegally to the civil rights of the 60s. I mean, it's just insane, and no analogy there whatsoever. Joining us now to talk about this whole border situation and what the president is threatening to do is Senator Jeff Sessions, Republican from the great state of Alabama, member of the Senate Budget Committee and the Senate Subcommittee on Immigration, Border Security, and Citizenship. Hello, Senator.
Hello, Steve.
Great to talk to you. All right, let's start first of all with the latest on the border crisis. You know, I'm hearing from the Democrats that nobody in Congress should go home for the recess until something is done about the border situation, and yet I think the president's going on vacation. But nonetheless, where are we? What is going to happen, if anything?
Well, we don't know what will happen, if anything. But the Democratic proposals are to throw billions of dollars at it and not undertake any of the actions and reforms that are needed to help. Of course, truly, if the president utilizes current law, we wouldn't be in this crisis. It's because they've failed to follow current law, a long-established law, that we've had this surge. So one of the things that will be happening is the Democrats will attempt to move a supplemental funding bill for the border crisis, and Congressional Budget Office has said they only plan to spend about $25 million of that this fiscal year. That's through September 30th. So really,
there's no rush.
It's no rush. They've got monies within their budget, at least at this time. But in addition, as you indicated, the president is talking openly, and his staff openly, about executing a new amnesty of 5 to 6 million, maybe more, adults in America. That he's just going to do that himself. It would be one of the most dramatic overreaches of executive power, certainly since I've been in Congress and maybe in the last 100 years. It's just unbelievable what they're talking about doing.
What would the
Congress has refused to pass it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. What would the ramification, if he were to do that, what would that mean for this country?
Well, first of all, it would be if Congress doesn't utilize every power it has, particularly the power of the purse, to stop it, then it would be an incredible assertion of executive power vis-a-vis Congress and alter the constitutional framework in a way that the founders would never have accepted. Plain law says if you're in this country illegally, you're subject to deportation and you are unable to work lawfully in our country. The president, in his previous DACA, gave young people actually an ID card with big print across the top, work authorization. The Congress insistently resisted that, and now he's talking about tenfold, that's their word, adding tenfold to their previous action. So it just cannot be accepted, number one. Number two, these workers would be given a work authorization. They'll be able to take any job in America at a time when we are hurting, workers are hurting for a lack of jobs. It makes no sense, and it also would weaken the rule of law and really undermine any moral integrity, any moral strength that we have to have enforcement of any law at the border, frankly.
Is that what you just said there at the end, the latter statement you made of all of them, do you believe that's the motivation? I mean, because everything you said is undeniably true, and the American people overwhelmingly would agree with you in any polls that would be taken. So I know he's not running again. He doesn't have to worry about that. But is that the purpose, to undermine any laws, any kind of management of the border? Is that what he meant by fundamentally changing America, or is that one of the things he meant?
Well, many people think so, but specifically with regard to this, apparently he has promised these activist groups, La Raza and some of the others, certainly not mainstream, he promised them he was going to do this. Congress has refused to do it, and he's told them, apparently, actually, he's told them he's going to do it anyway. So it's hard-headedness, it's a improvident promise, and it represents a lack of respect for a lawful system of immigration. He does not respect that, or he would have done much better as the chief law enforcement officer in the country in executing our laws.
And what does Congress do? You say, not allocating the funds for it, but, there are people out there who are saying, some elected officials, who are saying that Barack Obama wants to be impeached because he knows he'll never be convicted, and he kind of is aching to be impeached. You heard the administration actually bring up impeachment the other day, saying that it's a real possibility, the White House, that is. So, I mean, do you think he's almost daring the House to impeach him?
Well, it is one of the most odd statements I've ever heard. For him to say, I'm going to do this policy, and if I do, I'm likely to be impeached or something, or that could happen. What Congress needs to do is not be focused on that. Congress has a power. Congress needs to put in any legislation that passes, and no legislation should pass without this language. It says, no money of the United States can be expended to execute any such amnesty or work authorization.
That would happen in the House, but that has to also happen in the Senate, correct?
It would, and at this point, the people, it is unlikely maybe to pass this week, but what I'm asking the American people to do is ask their representatives, Democrats and Republicans, do you support this? Will you support the president's unlawful amnesty assertion of power, and will you oppose it? And the way to oppose it is the Cruz language. Ted Cruz offered a good bill. It basically says if you go forward, you cannot use any taxpayer dollar to carry out such an unlawful policy. And I think that would work. It would have to have bipartisan support, and I can't see why it would not. Why wouldn't Democrats oppose this? Aren't they members of Congress? Don't they know that Congress has passed a law saying something different, and the president's saying and asserting that he's going to just do this anyway?
You would think, but then it's all up, at least now, for the remainder of this year, to Harry Reid to bring it up.
Well, we need to stay on it.
Yeah.
American people need to do not take no for an answer. And I think that this crowd can be broken because we've got an election coming up in November, and people need to know where their representatives stand. And I hope they'll call and ask and insist on their views being heard.
One more real quick. John Kerry promised the people of Gaza 47 million or so, and at the same time we found out Hamas is purchasing rockets from North Korea. Why don't we just write a check to North Korea? Because there's no way in heck that money's going to the people of Gaza, is there?
Steve, this is so unfortunate. I wish this hadn't have happened, but Israel cannot sit by and let 2,000 rockets be launched from across its border on their citizens. They have to respond, and we don't need to be trying to stop them from eliminating that threat prematurely, in my view. It's a sad thing. I wish it didn't happen, but at some point a nation has a right to defend itself.
Senator, great talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Jeff Sessions, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. This will be the ultimate in your face. This will be the ultimate, I don't care, I'm the president, Congress won't act, so I will, and then they'll count this as another executive order and say, oh, look, he still doesn't have as many as George W. Bush. The magnitude of this proposed executive order that people are talking about would be unprecedented. Unprecedented, just like the way they shut out Republicans on Obamacare. Unprecedented in the magnitude and the scope and the depth and the reach of the bill itself. So we'll see what happens. The Malzberg panel's next. Don't go away.